Rev up your engines! ...2002 Toyota Sequoia. The second year they made them. This particular one was made in Indiana. That's where they started making them. They're basically a Toyota Tundra frame, and they turned them into a large SUV truck, whatever we want to call them, that can go just about anywhere. The early ones look quite a bit like a 4Runner. 4Runners are all made in Japan. These are all made in Indiana. And this is, of course, a V8 with four-wheel drive. Now, as we look inside, here we go. We got mechanical, low and high, and neutral. You shift it by hand. No electronic crap on this. Now, strangely enough, the man hardly ever uses the four-wheel drive because the roads here, as bumpy as they are, they're not made of dirt, and they're always cleared, so. And it doesn't really snow all that much in Rhode Island either. I mean, it's great in the snow, but it doesn't snow much. Now, under the hood, these I-Force V8s can last forever. They've only got one downside because it's an old vehicle, and as you can see, it's got a rubber timing belt in it. They work perfectly fine, but of course they're rubber. Eventually they'll break. They tell you to change them every 100,000 miles. So since it's an interference engine, if the belt breaks, the pistons will hit the valves and ruin the engine. So you're supposed to change it every 100,000 miles. And if you're a riverboat gambler like some of my customers, I've had customers of these things with over 200,000 miles, and they never changed the belt, and they were still running down the road. They are that well built. But if you're looking to buy one of these in a worry wart, get one that's got the timing chain, then you'll never have to think about it. But like you say, these belts last an awful long time. This vehicle has one gigantic problem. It's a gigantic vehicle. This one gets about 13 miles a gallon in town on a good day. They eat up gas. Almost every customer that I've had with one of these, I'll say, what kind of gas mileage you get? And they said, I'm afraid to find out. We fill it up all the time. I don't want to know how low it is. That's just how these are. They're four-wheel drive. They're giant heavy vehicles with a big V8 engine. They got decent acceleration, but they get the world's worst gas mileage. Now that Toyota's not selling the Land Cruiser in the United States anymore, this is their biggest vehicle. It's actually a very similar vehicle anyway. And even go back, in the early days, one year they sold like 68,000 of them. Last year in the United States, they only sold like maybe 8,000 of them. They're big, heavy vehicles that get lousy gas mileage. They're gonna be fading away as time goes on. Now this guy, he doesn't really care because Rhode Island isn't that big, and he's a mobile DJ. So, he doesn't have to go all that far. And man, you can fit a lot of crap in these things. Now, you'll see these little latches, the plastic under there, they break all the time. He used to stick a screwdriver in there, but now he just opens it from the side to load it and stuff. He could fix it if he wanted, but he doesn't really care. He can get all his gear in, get all his gear out, not get stuck anywhere with the four-wheel drive. And of course, there's all kinds of room inside. The leather's a little bit worn, but hey, you got these seats. Then if you want, you can have seats back there, but you can see, he's put a bunch of plywood in because he's carrying all his DJ equipment in it. He's even gotten rid of the top here so he can fit more stuff in. Now we'll look inside, and yeah, this is what happens. You get nice seat covers. Cover them up. The leather's going to rip. Toyota leather isn't the greatest. And we'll check inside. How many miles does this baby have? It's got 222,450 miles on it. And does it burn oil? No, it doesn't burn oil. It's a Toyota. These things are well made. It shits perfectly fine. It runs fine. It just gets crappy gas mileage. Got ABS brakes that work. And look, a transmission with an actual dipstick, so you can change it and check it yourself, unlike that modern crap. It has the original power steering pump, the original air conditioning compressor, and it's a Toyota. The AC is still freezing cold. If you go way under there, it doesn't have the original alternator. There's a story behind that. It wasn't charging, so they took it in. The guy replaced the alternator, didn't fix the problem. It turned out it was a wiring feeding the alternator that they had to fix, so it's got a new alternator on it. It's only the first one they changed, but the old one probably was still working fine because when they put a new one on, it still didn't charge. So it probably didn't even need that. That's how well made these are. You know, I'm always saying, oh, buy a Japanese vehicle made in Japan. Well, these were made in Indiana, and since 2022, they're making them in San Antonio along with all the Tundras. They moved all the Tacoma production to Mexico. They're excellent vehicles still. Yes, they're gas hogs. They haven't changed all that much. They still use a lot of gasoline, but they can run forever. And what's more important to you? Let's face it, you're going to drive a big, heavy four-wheel drive vehicle. It doesn't matter what they do to the technology, it's going to use a lot of gas. If you're using it for business, it's a business expense. You're writing it off anyways like he is. It'll get you where you're going. It'll always start. Do you really care if you get one that, oh, this other big one doesn't get 13, it gets 20. It's really not all that different. And of course, if you take it on a highway and you drive like an absolute turtle, you might get 16 or push 17 if you're going downhill with the wind behind you. But enough of me talking, let's see what the machine says. Oh, here we go. All right, we'll do an automatic scan. Now, as we look here, you can see the engine and the transmission and everything, totally normal. The only problem is there's some failures with the ABS system. We'll look at it, but who really cares? You don't expect ABS to work all that well on a vehicle that's this old. Circuit of right rear speed sensor, malfunction of control system, and the steering angle sensor, which is in here. I would never count on ABS on a vehicle this old anyways. He's had no problem stopping it, especially when you got a four-wheel drive system. You can just put it in high or low. It's not going to be skidding around. These things are so heavy. They're like 18-wheeler trucks. The reason the 18-wheeler trucks, you see them going fast in the rain, they don't care. They weigh so much, they don't hydroplane. As long as you keep good tires on it. We will go back to the engine and we'll look at live data. Start it up. We'll start checking out the data. Nothing's odd colored yet. The short-term fuel trim. It's only subtracting 0.04% on number 1 and 0.04% on number 2. That means that it's working at 99.96% of perfect. You can't get much closer than that on a vehicle that's this old with 200-something thousand miles. These things are made to last. But just realize, it's still a gas hog. It doesn't matter that it's working at 99.96% efficiency. It's still going to use a lot of gas because it's big and heavy and has a giant V8 engine. Check everything else here. See if there's any odd data. Look at all the data, even on this old car. And here we go. Misfiring of the engine. Okay, we're looking at them all. 1 through 8. What do we see? Nothing but zeros. It does not have a misfiring engine. We know that. Just listen to how quiet that engine is. Rev it up. You don't hear clacking. You don't hear weird noises. Now you're plenty high up in the air here. So in this case, you really don't have to worry about the giant bump that keeps water from going to my neighbor's yard. It'll just fly over that and you'll bounce around like a Porky Pig cartoon van, but hey, it goes. And when we're coming to the horrible bumpy Rhode Island roads, you'll see one thing, that it doesn't bother you. Yeah, it's old, the shocks are worn, but it's still a smooth ride on the bumps because it weighs so much and it's got a big wheelbase. It's still really comfortable. Now you're going to hear a lot of noise in this because he took the insulation out and he's got a bunch of DJ crap and he took the third row seats out. So that you're going to see, that's not the car's problem. He doesn't care about the noise, so you wouldn't either if you were driving it around. This big V8 engine, when you're pulling into traffic, it's got no problem at all taking off. Chase it, the cops are coming after us. You can see it's perfectly smooth for cruising around, and there's absolutely nothing that needs to be done to this vehicle except for the handle on the back, and he doesn't care. He used to use a screwdriver and I just use the back door, so you can fix it if you want. You can always get parts for these things. I mean, it's no problem at all. Check this out. It doesn't shake at all at idle with 220,000 miles. Listen to that engine. You can just hear that V8 engine humming. So what do I think? They're still making these things, although they're not making them in Indiana now. They're making them in San Antonio with the Tundras. As the bell tolls, they're still solid vehicles. Modern ones, of course, have more electronic stuff. Nothing like a simplicity that this machine is. They'll still last, but I doubt if they'll last as long as these old ones. Just realize one thing. If you're buying one of these, you're better off getting a timing chain one if you don't maintain right, so because the belt breaks. Check the frame to make sure it's not rusted. They will rust if you get in a bad area. They can rust out. And realize older is actually better. These engines are so well made. You can get rebuilt ones that are perfect. You can get them for a low enough price. You can put another engine in if the tranny goes out, but they rarely go out. I've never seen a transmission go out in one of these, so I mean, that's how rare it is. But you can get anything on it fixed as long as the frame is still like this. Look, superficial rust, but sounds like new steel. And this is Rhode Island. They use a lot of salt here in the winter. These things are solid built. If this was an American vehicle, you go like this on the running boards, they crumble and they fall off. These are still solid as can be. You don't mind about gas prices? 13 miles a gallon. Yes, that's what they actually get. You'll be happy with one of these. If you don't drive that much, who cares? It'll get you where you're going, it won't break. And considering you're gonna buy a new car, what's the average car going for now? You know, 40-something thousand dollars. You can buy an awful lot of gasoline for that. I would get one of these and just keep fixing it forever. If I had one. Just realized they're not that easy to find because they don't sell that many. Yeah, this one was like 60,000 this year they sold, but last year they only sold like 8,000 of them in the United States. They don't sell that many. They don't make that many. They're not all that easy to find. So if you really want one and you find one, don't quibble over chicken chump. If they want 3 or 4 or 5 grand more than you want to pay, hey, just pay it. If a guy like me says it's in good shape. You can see with one of those handheld scanners, you get a real good idea what kind of shape the things are in. Who cares about the stupid traction control crap that never works all that well anyway? As long as it's solid and it runs and it's running as efficient as this one is, there's nothing wrong with it. You can drive it for years to come. I had a customer in Houston had 550K on one of these things and it still ran strong. Did use a lot of gas though over those 550,000 miles. But then again, there's a lot of oil in Texas. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.